Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it may be.
Always, always. Another day with the Wolf and the Bear podcast.
You betcha.
We
Happy
are a
day.
spiritual podcast. We try to keep it educational. And oh my gosh, I have to tell you, I'm so ADD. Iggy quoted you in the interview.
Oh my
He
gosh.
go out of nowhere. He was like, well, and wisdom first, love second. And I was like,
I love it.
I thought that was so
That's what
cool.
it's about. Yes.
Anyways, yeah. So we're a spiritual podcast featuring Terri Groom, Psychic Medium channel, DFW's finest. Your host, Sophia Sterling, avid student of Terri, and we just get together and we talk about our beliefs about spirituality, and we try to keep it real and raw, and we pull from our experiences. So everything that we talk about is something that either we have experienced or we experience through spirituality. So we try to, just keep what our truth is and let that be what it is.
Absolutely.
Now, today, Terri, I want to cover two different topics. One of them kind of on the back end, I did want to ask you about angelic energy. I
Okay,
sent you a
excellent.
video earlier last week, and so we'll talk about
Mhm.
that. And then I do have a friend who brought up some really good questions this morning about
Okay.
remote viewing. And I do know that that is an interest of a lot of people. And it's also, to me, a bit of a dangerous interest because I feel that it can come with its own challenges of just bad spiritual hygiene, et cetera, et cetera.
Well said. Yes.
All right. So, but also I wanted to say, you got back from vacation and then we went straight into the craziest week of your life.
Yes. Busy.
Right. And then, I was at the Psychic Fair in Bedford and you were at, the Miracles of Joy in Louisville. And so we had a spirit weekend. Well, you always do, but it was a good weekend.
We had a good weekend. Yep. Loving what we're doing. That's what makes it a good weekend.
Yes, that's very, very true. And we got to kind of chit chat. It was so
That
funny.
was nice too. That doesn't happen
Yeah.
very often. So yes, it was
No.
very nice.
But I'm glad that it feels like we're moving into another busy week. But
Yes.
but
That's good.
I think so.
And you'll probably see me putting my glasses on and taking my glasses off. Yes.
You're perfect.
Today's one of those days, the weather has been so odd, so my eyes are a little sticky. So if you see me putting them on and off, yes, I am.
It is overcast. I was noticing that.
Yes.
I thought it was going to be sunny. Well, before we start, I guess I would
Yes.
like, before I start with his questions, I would love just your take on remote viewing.
Okay, absolutely. And it can create some situations. You're absolutely on point there. I do a lot of classes and instruction on remote viewing. We recognize it has been around for decades and decades. A remote viewing is a skill that not only intuitives can be a part of, but anyone really can learn to remote view. We recognize it's not so much about intuition as it is about just the guidance and letting the information flow. I know that seems odd, but sometimes intuitives want to put a lot of information into it. They want to say, oh, well, this is a sandy area, therefore it's probably a beach, or we start adding our own little takes. So it doesn't have to come straight from intuition. Remote view is something there's many different techniques to remote view. One thing I want to say about it to kind of simplify is that remote view is simply without actually physically being in a certain environment. It is actually letting your energy view it, letting you see it. There are two techniques, so there's more, I'm sure, but the simplest of the techniques, we either go there and take a good look, or we bring it to us in our energy and take a good look. It's really done both ways. And so it's a wonderful tool, especially if you're trying to, locate someone, a missing persons, or you're looking for even a lost item. If you're trying to get more definitive information and you do it with a collectiveness, meaning you bring 3 or 4 people in and you all sit around a table and you all kind of connect to the same thing. There's so much you can learn from remote viewing. One thing, and we could talk about this for days. I love remote viewing. We recognize that it is a bit of a slippery slope because, as you said, you have to be, keep your scruples about you. Don't, make sure your integrity is intact, because the last thing we want to do is to teach you a skill such as remote viewing, only to find out that you're now checking in on your ex-boyfriend or his new girlfriend or someone that you should not be visiting. It can be very intrusive. We do still, as free will, we also have privacy, and that is something that we don't want to take away from others. So we don't want to use it to manipulate. We simply want to use it to educate.
And we recognize as well that there's been pretty easily documented in multiple governments about
Absolutely.
really focusing on this topic, obviously for espionage and
Yes.
homeland security, I'm sure, whatever that really means. But the thing, and I guess to be able to move like that, to bring it to you or vice versa, that is all done in the astral, correct?
Yes, absolutely. It is done in the
Okay.
astral. It's a very strong technique of reaching out into the astral world and looking for locations,
Because
predominantly
it is not
locations.
time sensitive.
Right. Well, sometimes it is time sensitive.
Well,
Sometimes,
because you remote viewed at one point during one of my classes the orphanage,
yes,
but
yes,
if I'm not mistaken, you remote viewed it from the perspective of the time I would have been there.
right. That is true.
And
Exactly.
that's curious. So we recognize that even through the astral, or even, through those experiences, it really does in some ways prove that time is it's a noted construct in our personal dimension.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's well stated. Going back to, I have a dear friend who spoke of the of government contracts and government work with remote viewing. They were very heavily involved in it for several years until they shut it down. But I had a really dear friend of mine, Ane, who actually worked in this particular fashion. That was one of her jobs, and she was working with the government in remote viewing. So again, a lot of, as you can imagine, we won't go into all the red tape, that we don't have enough time in our lifetime to do that.
Right.
But we recognize that it was a very valuable tool, and that there are many ways of doing the remote view, but we have to kind of break it into easy, accessible ways. So it's this school of thought. Do we go there, or do we bring it close enough to us to be able to view it in our world now? And those are the two schools of thought to begin to go into. With remote view, we do have an opportunity of crossing the timelines. If we are trained and we are told, we speculate that there is no time other than in our universe, in our world with us, then we would have to understand that we'd have to see that it would be simple to travel either ahead or travel behind. So, can we go into
weird.
that? That's, well,
Didn't think of
it
that.
kind of breaks all the notions that we're told we're not able to view the future.
Well,
which
I don't
is
know why
what I
I'm so
laugh
surprised about that, because now I just think about, like, that's what we do for work. I don't know why. I was just like, my mind was blown for no reason for a second, because I was like, what do you mean we could look into the future? As though that's not like how some of us make our money. That's so funny.
I know,
Okay.
I love it. And I'm going to make some of my colleagues upset with me right now, but half of what we do, and I don't want to say every single reading, every single chat, but we are looking into the future, because most of the time the people in front of us really kind of know their past, and they don't need a rehash. So we are working towards what's happening in the present and in the future. We may have to reach back into the past to let you know why things are happening in the future. But if we are able to do that through intuitive work, then certainly in remote viewing, which again it was never deemed to be an intuitive field, which is a very fascinating take on it. But I have told several people, and I trained several people that were not really intuitives, and just thought it was interesting and curious
And how
to see if
successful
they
were
were
they?
able. Pardon me? What?
How successful were they with no intuitive?
Well, again, some of them were were very surprisingly correct and accurate. So, again, there's so many different little techniques, little ways of training. I would put pictures, or I still do. In fact, I believe I have one coming up. I have to look at my own schedule. I'm not sure.
You can't
Um,
view your schedule? No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, I have to remove. That's right. I love that. I should, right? I should probably do it more often.
No, no, no.
But an easy way of practice, and it's really just about practice, is putting pictures. I have envelopes, just regular envelopes, and I put a picture in the envelope and I seal the picture and I number them. So if I have 5 or 6 envelopes, it really depends on how many students I have in a class instruction. Then what we would do is we just pass the envelopes we could do one at a time, putting again, it's sealed. So we put it on the table and allow the group to collectively go and find out what it is. What is the picture about? What's in the envelope? What is it depicting? Are we in the day or the night, or is it winter? Or is it fall? Is it summer? Where are we? Are we at the beach or the desert? Are we in a community, or are we in an isolated location? Is it a mansion or is it a shed? So what we do is we recognize it, and collectively we can start gathering information. And it's just on the feel of things, trying to connect to what's there. And then we have, at that point, we would just simply write down our impressions, whether we do it so as a group or we do it individually at that moment. So oftentimes what you'll see is you'll get a list of 5 or 6 things. When you go around and find out what the information is from what they've gathered, you'll see that there is a lot of similarities. And it's quite fascinating. I had one student that was just so upset because she immediately said to me, "I can't do this." And I just chuckled, because I thought, you just paid for this class, and the very first thing you told me about you is that you can't do this. I thought, oh my, we got to back away from that thinking. And it was funny because on one of the envelopes, she actually knew it was a sailboat. She knew it was on the water, and she knew that it was which continent it was. And I was shocked, and she was equally shocked. So I didn't let her say that anymore during the class.
I love that. Wow, that's very gifted.
It's very gifted. And again, this was not an intuitive. This was not someone who would go in and say, oh, well, intuitively, let me see, I'm connecting, I've got this in my hand or that in my energy. She just went with no idea. And she was able to connect.
The thing for me with all of this, to me, as far as like the labels of versions of way to do anything, to me, it's either of the physical world or it's of the spiritual world. And it's all just versions of that. So if someone's like, I'm not intuitive, but you have this weird ability to astral travel to a new place, like that, to me, it's the same thing. Like it's a propensity towards that.
Yes.
I remember specifically that there was a situation where I was supposed to go and figure out who owned a ring.
Yes, that's.
And as I was sharing that with you, it got to a certain point where you pulled me out of the meditation. And basically it was just, and I had felt that I was staring into a fire and getting drawn into it. And so you didn't really, I mean, I don't know how much of that you recognized, but I was remote viewing something that had happened a long time ago. And yet the energy was such that you felt protective of me in that moment.
Yes.
Why? Mm-hmm. And that brings us to the concerns of astral travel. So what were you concerned about? And what would you say, like, what in that moment, I guess, why did you say we do not need to keep doing this?
Because I recognized I had some information about that ring, so I knew some of the some of the negative side of the experience of the person that owned the ring. Mm-hmm. And so as you were going into that experience, we recognize sometimes that we can go down the rabbit hole unintentionally, where we're not really expecting what we're going to see. And I felt that you were going to go into the rabbit hole of pain and heartache, because what you were seeing was something that was speculated about the owner. There was fire around this person. In a situation that would have been dangerous. So we didn't, again, based on your reaction and your assessment as you began the practice, it became pretty obvious to me that you had connected and we needed to move on.
Well, and so that also leads to kind of, especially in this circumstance where we believe the owner of this ring had potentially passed as a result of fire, we're also isolating down to a moment of death, which has a tendency to be incredibly dense, especially if it's a horrible way and an unwilling way.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so there's like we always talk about X marks the spot, which is why the satanic practices go to the same spots, because they do hold energy.
Right.
So as if you're an untrained, which at the time I was, but thank God I was with you, etc. Like, there are rules here. There are things that we recognize. There is gravity in the astral plane
Yes.
that just you could be unaware you're about to go there. You could be aware, and as you get closer to the gravity, like gravity does, it'll draw you.
It'll draw you into it.
So
Exactly.
you think you're just going to go check out this old shack, and what no one recognizes is that horrible things have happened there. And now either you become obsessed with the thought because the gravity's there and you want to go back. You wreck it, or it's tantalizing. Things like that. It's hard to like, for instance, I told him straight up, like, I'm very blunt with individuals who have questions for me, because I don't think it's
Right.
wise to beat around it. But he said
Right.
he got pushed down uh because he was trying to astral travel at 3 a.m. on Halloween, which I don't even leave my house on Halloween because it's such a potent. Well, I hang out with you, but like
Right.
I'm not out at night. I don't go and do it. There's certain nights, Beltane, I don't go out. I recognize there's a lot of activity in the spirit world. I just need to
Yes.
chill. And so for him to go into the place where, like, there's a lot of protection and barriers to the physical form.
Absolutely.
People,
Yes. A lot of
everyone's
checks
trying to
and
get out of the
balances in place
physical.
too.
What'd you say?
A lot of checks and balances in place as well. Yes.
Yes. So then you're trying to go into a place with less boundaries, and you're untrained on a
Right.
night where everything bad is kind of bumping that night.
Oh,
This is a
yes.
problem. Like, we got to think about these things. And so, I mean, to me at least, uh, and we covered a lot of that. Oh, to you, what is your perspective on lucid dreaming and remote viewing?
Okay. I'm done. Well, exactly. Let me tie all three of these together,
Thank
real
you.
real quick. Like, so you mentioned psychometry. Now we know also in remote viewing, we don't always have something to hold. We don't always have a target. We may have just a map. We may have a map of a country, and we're having to sort out where someone would be located. So we don't always have it through that particular type of discovery. We recognize in all of what we do that everything's an interlocking puzzle. So we recognize that there are some skill sets in psychometry that are very much the same as in remote viewing. We see that. We also see that some of the skill sets that we use in dream states are also some of the skill sets that we would use through intuition, through connection, through remote view, through bilocating. There's a lot of things, again, that are interlocking. So if I'm looking at lucid dreaming, and we're going to get back to also about the activity and the potential for there to be a heightened state of activity on some of these spectacular dates that you mentioned. But going back to lucid dreaming, it doesn't have to be, every lucid dream doesn't have a direct connection to something they have bilocated to be or see. Lucid dreaming sometimes is just an awakened state where you are in a different frame of rhythm with your sleep states, and so therefore you are kind of caught in a state of mind where your mind is reactive, but your body is still deep in rest. And so we recognize a lot of things, a lot of information could come out during that time. Sometimes it's just basic information. Sometimes it's scary. It's usually scary. I don't know why we always find, we can't move our bodies, and now there's an intruder in the house, and now they're whispering in our ear. It does feel that way oftentimes, or we're being threatened or injured. Do they have a direct correlation precisely with remote viewing? You could use them, and you could take this map, put it under your pillow, go into a state of slumber, and come back with these thoughts. Then you actually have a deeper connection. It wasn't lucid dreaming and remote viewing that kind of married each other during this state of rest. So the answer to your question is not a real straightforward answer. I wish I could say, Sophia, it was, but it's more of they can have a correlation. Now, you said that your friend he was remote viewing, and it was on a Halloween.
He said, I'll read it
Okay.
precisely. He said, where is it? Oh, he said, is that, I was explaining I sent him to the second episode about gatekeepers and guides. I was saying
Okay.
a lot of your
Okay.
questions would be answered through that. That was
Okay.
the context. He said, is that the being that shoved me down when I tried to remote view with no protection at 3 a.m. on Halloween?
Okay, and that's a very good question. Okay, now there's a lot of things that we have to take and apply to that particular question.
Of course.
Okay, first we recognize, yes, October 31st is a very powerful day. We recognize it because we, as a population, we as a society have a take on it. We have a certain look about Halloween. Some not so favorable. There are a lot of people that find that Halloween is the devil's work. And so there's just a lot of energy being thrown at Halloween. Is it a time where there seems to be a heightened energy? Well, most definitely. Anytime, again, when society is thinking similar thoughts, there is an elevated energy that is associated with that particular time. So we recognize it again, the magical time. I mean, he's got all the moving parts to this. He's got a magical day. He's got a magical time. We recognize that at 3 or so, between 3 and 5, usually we hear that there's more activity. Well, that's because the mind is more at rest. We're usually in a state of either a REM sleep or heading in that direction. Or we know that, again, the house is usually still and quiet, that our society, our community as a whole is not as active. So we're more apt to get information through the spiritual world. People will say to you, oh, the veil is thinner. And that's possibly true. I'm not sure. I feel like they
Or
can
the
play.
static is less loud.
Right, or the static, right, exactly. Which makes sense because we're in a state of calm. Because most of us are not in that state because we're usually not, most of us not sleeping all day long or during the day. So the 3 a.m. is the magical time. So remote viewing, again, when you remote view that in a dream state, you're more astral traveling.
I think that's what he's kind of. I think I think he's meaning all of kind of the same thing.
All of the same things what it's feeling like. And I get it. It's a wonderful question. So more than anything, what I want to understand is what I'm hearing is in this state of mind, this time frame in a lucid dream, he felt he was shoved. Now,
I
did
don't
he
think
feel?
he means he was dreaming. I think he was physically touched.
Okay, so
And I
he
don't
feels
think it
that
was
he
his
was
guide.
shoved in his, excuse me, well, in his bed at this time. He was shoved, and he wants to know how that applies. Well, again, if you're remote viewing and you're traveling, again, it's really about what came first, the horse or the cart.
Exactly.
Because if I'm remote viewing, how did I get there? Did it come to me or did I go to it? Now, if I'm into someone else's territory, theoretically, I'm an energy, so they should not necessarily see me, spying on them, right? That's why we say don't do that to don't cross boundaries with it, because theoretically they're not supposed to know. But if they're in spirit and you're traveling through energy, so your energy is traveling through a spirit connection, then they can see you. So is the fact of the matter he got shoved probably was for many different reasons. Was he shoved because he was someplace he shouldn't have been?
Right.
Did he cross a barrier that he wasn't aware of?
So that it wasn't even a being, that it was just an experience.
It could have been an experience. Did he reach into the spiritual realms and something didn't want him there, and it was a being that decided to kind of get his attention? That's possible too. We know that we can have very many different states of mind where we are touched and where we are in a situation where we feel that we are having an interaction, whether that's bilocating, remote viewing, lucid dreaming, really any of the above, astral travel, all of these can have that exact same component. So the fact is, yes, was there a heightened state of energy? Absolutely. We've got a powerful day. We've got a powerful time. We have an intention. if he was in a state of again, as he says, remote viewing, he must have had some awareness. There would have been some conscious trail there that would have taken him, at least for the first part of it, to that destination.
And I feel that you don't pick that time in that day without sort of an unconscious or intuitively. I feel you had a very conscious intention to
Yes,
see something spooky or to see something that would be titillating. No one wants to just go see a meadow. And so I think that
exactly.
you're courting chaos by even just your intention. And so then you're like,
Yes,
well, I want to see something spooky. It's Halloween. Well, then you might bump into something spooky. And then
yes.
you can't be like confused on how you maybe have a negative experience when you're doing something with no training on a crazy
Right.
night at a crazy time, etc. And so, and if it was a guide, then I can only, because we understand the nature of that, it was to
Yes.
benefit him to get him out of town.
Yes,
Like,
that's exactly right. And
so
it's and I love the fact that I really do. I love the fact that he had the curiosity to give that all a try
it
on a very
bugged me. I feel
powerfully
like
night. Yeah,
he's very
he was
smart.
right. He was curious too. What a
Hmm.
cool thing. And I would probably do the same thing. So I'm not knocking his desire to do some remote work at a very interesting time. But but I would say you do recognize that when you go out beyond the physical world, you're going to get touched. You're going to get reminded that you are a physical body experiencing a spiritual matter. You're going to get feedback. It brings me to it's playing in my head, so it must have been some movie I saw once upon a time where everyone is tiptoeing into the graveyard thinking it's awesome and cool, right? Oh boy, it's a spooky ooky because it's midnight or later or whatever, or the 3 o'clock bewitching time, and all of a sudden something occurs and they're totally 100% screaming and running at top-notch speed, and I just chuckle because I think, well, what were you hoping to gain? Wasn't that what you came here to do? You
Maybe
see?
that's the human hubris too, is it's like
Yes.
I feel like you specifically and me significantly less, but like if we waltz into the astral plane, we don't really know what we're doing. Like
No, we don't.
we don't know the rules. We know
Right.
enough to keep ourselves safe because we've trained to do so.
Right.
But there could be a plot twist that you and I have no idea that that plot twist is allowed, what the rules really are. And so then, people are like online and they're trying to figure out how to astral travel. And it's like, well, now, that's an even more challenging circumstance. And
Yes.
I do think that it is curious to me because lucid dreaming, the astral travel, the remote viewing, all that, it draws people. I get
It
asked about that
does.
all the time. Why do
It
you think it
does.
draws people? It's like a
Yes.
siren call.
Well, it is, and that's exactly what it is. That makes perfect sense. What I would like to do is give you a bit of a scenario here. I'm being led by my guides to kind of take you into how all these get tied together, so
Mhm.
that you're not sitting on the other side of this podcast or Spotify, wherever you may be viewing or listening to this, and wondering, but wait a minute, no, I was told it was this or that. So let's take just a little step here to kind of tie in some of these terms. So, say for instance, we are in the middle of the day and we are sitting at a table, and someone hands us a map. Now, I know there's other techniques, but I'm gonna clarify it in this way. Someone hands you a map, and they say we need to find out more information. We feel that there's something going on in this uh, particular area, but we're not going to tell you what state. We're going to just give you this map. Well, theoretically, the map is not going to give us the psychometry. We're not going to utilize that as psychometry because we don't have anything that's personal. We have a map. So we don't have any touchy-feelies except for something we can kind of close our eyes and gaze into, or close our eyes and put our finger on the map, or look at the map and come to a destination choice. So we know that that is a remote viewing. That is a pure remote view. Go find a spot. X marks the spot. You can't really do much with it. You don't even know what you're really looking for yet. All you know is that you're going to mark a spot.
Mhm.
And then say, for instance, we'll tie it into, say, a missing persons case. And you'll hear me mention missing persons cases quite often because it really utilizes every skill set that we are taught. And
And
that's why I
I'm
like
gonna
to use
brag
it.
about you a little bit. You've done quite a bit of work with certain departments.
I
So
have.
you've done a lot of really good work with this in a way that it's helped a lot of people. And so when
I
people are
hope
like,
so.
"Oh,
Yes.
is any of this real? Is she legitimate?" Da da da. It's like, well, these law departments wouldn't keep coming for your help if you weren't on your P's and
Well,
Q's.
of course, what's real cool about it, well, I say it's cool, it's kind of funny actually, is that you'll never get credit in public
Mm-mm.
for that, okay?
No.
No detective is going to say you use the help of a well-known intuitive. It just sounds bad for his career, but that's okay. So
Because we found the people.
we found the people. But going back to the map, so we go into the remote view part of it. That's great. And then we get more information. Say, for instance, we find out why we just pointed to the map. Maybe there's something that there's a missing person that we're trying to locate. So then the next step would be, okay, perhaps maybe, do you have anything of this person? Do you have a piece of psychometry, piece of clothing, something this person would have had? So now our remote view gets nice and tied neatly into psychometry, where now we actually hold something that's even more relevant to what we're looking for. And so then we can use psychometry as a way to go find it. We could also at that time start the travels, the astral travel. We've picked a location. We believe that that location is likely to be it. So then we can go through the astral experience. We can go through the bilocation experience, and we can further use remote view to take us to a target. Now, a target is simply a person, a place. A target sounds like a very technical term, but it's just locating what we're looking for. It's taking us to what we're looking for. And so we use all of those skill sets. We'll say you come home, you're still working on this, you take a nap, you go to sleep, now you're lucid dreaming. You're probably also in a state of intuitive state because you spent all day trying to search and find. So now you're going into a level of intuition, which comes out as lucid dreaming. So
Yes,
do you see where we're going with this? So there is
100%.
no wrong answer, okay? And there's a lot of right answers. You can utilize all these techniques to get you to an answer.
That's what I think is like such a good point, is that these are all different tools, but they're functioning in the same toolbox. It's like nobody,
Yes.
and so somebody could be great at psychometry, but that also has to mean that they have some potentiality to those other tools because they're
Yes.
in the same toolbox. And
Yes.
so, and I do think I told him, and again, I'm pretty blunt, but he said, I have a weird question as to why, I can't quite tell the difference between my daydreams before bed and my dreams. I feel one become the next, and I think I daydream in sleep, if that makes sense. I have no idea what he means.
Well, I love that because in a lot of my dream work classes, I talk about dreams or daydreams or dreams. It's just a different time of the day in which we have them. So again, we could get real particular here. If daydreams are during the day and you're working at night, and then day is your sleep, is it dreams? Is it still a daydream? I know that's a silly way of looking at it, but
No, I mean, I think I understand. Well, two things real quick that came to mind. First of all, what they were showing when you were talking about the different tools in the map, and you were talking about then you could enhance it by the psychometry, and enhance it
yes,
by this. But it was almost
yes,
like, how many tools can you heat up a butter knife to cut through the butter?
yes.
So the more you add on, the hotter the knife, the easier it gets to get where you're going.
Absolutely,
Which I
absolutely.
thought was a funny mental image, but
I love that. I'll tell you. It's like we always say, we always work from the standpoint of love and wisdom. I got the love and she's got the wisdom. It's just simple as that.
no, wolf and bear. No, but what they just kind of said was just like a mirror. We talked about why mirrors have the potentiality to be a portal in our
Yes,
last episode or whatever, because you are seeing the image of something represented,
right.
right? And so that's all
Exactly.
dreams are, right? It's essentially a mirror in our mind where we're developing these portal-like potentials that will
Yes.
just never go because we're like, if you're sitting there daydreaming about going camping, right?
Right.
If you're at your office, that's an impossibility right now.
Exactly.
But you might still, and you talk about this in your perceptions class where you eat the pizza without eating it.
Right.
You might daydream in that you are camping and your body regulates and calms down to the point as though you had been.
Yes.
That to me is, well, is it astral travel? Is it dreaming? It's those are all synonymous, right?
Well, that's exactly right.
Okay, that
And
makes sense.
we do get caught up in the terms. And I see it time and time again, every class instruction, every time I am working with these type of skills that in our toolbox. People always want an exact answer. Is this remote view? Is this by location? Is this, and on and on and on. And I get it, because I used to be you. I used to know that. I used to say that. I used to feel that. I always felt that if I couldn't figure out which one it was, then I couldn't do it.
Oh,
But then I
interesting.
realized that's not what it is. They're all intertwined.
That makes
And
perfect
so
sense.
the fact of the matter is he daydreaming at night? Because he doesn't know to separate the daydream from the night dreams. Well, first I want to say to this wonderful person, darling, you need to get some more sleep. Because if you're going into that kind of readiness for sleep after just relaxing, either I want your sleep habits or you need to develop a little more rest in your day. Because I feel that you're probably sleep deprived. Okay.
Mhm.
So intuitively, is it intuition?
Did you just
Is it
bilocate and
connection?
see that he
It's
didn't
fun.
sleep? No.
That's right. Am I knocking in his bedroom door? Oh, that's free will. So my point is, it's okay not to know exactly where the daydream stops or starts and the nighttime dreaming state begins. They can theoretically during the day when we're having our daydreams and we're thinking and we're moving on with meditation, however we're doing it. Those that meditate are going to have a lot more opportunities to go and move about in a daydream. At night, when we are going to sleep, there's a lot of things that physical things that come into play. We recognize that dreams can be very highly affected by what we've eaten, what we drank. If we've had 6 glasses of wine, you're probably going to have one heck of a roller coaster night of dream
that's
states.
excellent point, because it's like it doesn't always have meaning. It could just be that you ate something kind of not cool.
So we recognize that the state of minds do play a role in what the dream state looks like.
Yeah.
We recognize those that have a little PTSD can go into a dream state and with a little bit of panic, where it turns into, instead of a dream, it's more of a situation, a moment of PTSD.
A flashback.
So we realize that there's a lot of cause and effect when it comes to dream states. Some people don't go through all the different states of rest. They don't get to REM sleep. They get triggered by other stages, and they get either they wake up or they can't go deep enough to get into a pattern of rest. So there's a lot of things that play a strong role in dream states at night. Okay. So I would just say keep dreaming. Make sure you're getting adequate sleep, my friend. That's always important. The intuitive in me wants to say, you've got to have a little something before bedtime, nothing too heavy. Maybe for you, just something with no caffeine, even just something light, even a little bit of warm broth that's not too salty, just something to help you get back into a more restful sleep. Because I do feel that you're a little short on sleep.
Well, thank you, Terri.
You're welcome.
And to read, thanks for the great question. We've had an amazing conversation as a result of it. So
Love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Me too. And it's just great. That's a lot though.
And now, my friends, I want you to know, because you're going to hear some things here, and then you're going to hear some things when you meet both of us in person and we talk to you. I have a lot of colleagues that are asking me about events that are coming up that are in October, including one that I've got, but not on Halloween, but around Halloween. And I'm all for it. If you want to go experience life, as long as you're not doing anything that I deem as hateful or upsetting or crossing the boundaries, go experience it. If you want to go sit in a cemetery on Halloween, have at it. You know, when you run away and scream like a banshee, it's okay because you chose that. I'm not going to go in and tell you not to. So have at it, but recognize there's a responsibility in all actions. Pick and choose and be responsible for the outcomes.
And we circle back to the part in the conversation in our Ouija board topic where
Mhm.
we recognize that, you know, our guides can only protect us up to and through the point that we make a hard decision, a free will decision.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you do decide to go to the cemetery and you wonder if something like if your mood and behavior has changed and you wonder like, well, surely nothing happened. My guides would have protected me. Well, your guides were saying that maybe this was not a great idea. They were guiding you to maybe not do it.
Right.
And then you did, and then they're out. There are limits to what they can do on the spirit side anyway.
Absolutely.
So, you know.
Well, absolutely. They have your best interests, but they're not going to snatch up your free will.
They can't. Yes,
They
exactly.
can't do that. And so they might be sitting there going, gosh, I wish you wouldn't do this. I've already told you you shouldn't.
I already broke down the car on the way and that they still went.
Well, you know, it's funny you said that. And this is a totally off topic thing, but I want to throw this in your lap while we're at it. You know, and that's true. I mean, our guides really do talk to us. They want us to know, they want us to get information, but they're not going to step on our free will. And real quick, I want to share this experience because this is a perfect case of what you just said just now. You know, once upon a time when I was young, a long time ago, I was 18. I wasn't quite 18, but I wanted to go see snow in Canada. I lived very close to the Canadian border growing up. And I was working and, you know, I started at 17, a little after that. And so as far as they, you know, working for a company that knew that I was that young and not having to punch my age. Oh, that's a whole other stuff. But anyway, so I wanted to see snow in Canada because we didn't have any snow. And it was literally 2 days before Thanksgiving. So I was at work and short, again, I'll make this short. A friend of mine came in who worked at the other location, and I said, let's go do some fun things tonight. And she said, sure, let's go do that. So we decided we were going to learn how to play pool better. So we did a little playing of pool, and that came with every time we'd win, someone would buy us a drink. That's not a great way of winning pool, but it wasn't when you're 18.
It's motivating.
Right? It's motivating, and you know, it used to be 18 was a drinking age when I was that young. So fast forward. We were going to look at snow in Canada, right? Now, my guides are with me, right? I believe heavily in my guides. They helped me through a lot of things. Now, my contract wasn't to die in that car accident, okay? My contract wasn't to die in a car accident. My free will was what I used. At the Canadian border, crossing over to the other side, literally is what it almost was, the car broke down, literally coasted in. It was snowing and it was a snowstorm in Canada and Montreal. And there was the guard there. And he's saying, why are you wanting to go through? Because, you know, they have the Canadian side and the American side. And they both came on. They were both talking to me. And they would talk to my friend. They said, your car, the battery is dead. We will jump your battery, but you need to go back to the U.S. And we said, no, we want to see the snow.
Right.
Which, you know, it was snowing already, right?
Yeah.
We want to see the snow. So long story short, the car broke down. They helped us get the car jump started, correct? So they did that. And instead of turning around like we were advised, you know, of course, now we'd still be in jail if we'd done that this year or last year or the last few years. So when the car started, we waved to them and we drove into Canada. And so shortly after that, we ended up going over a bridge into a river. In the middle of nowhere in the country. This wasn't in the city. This was heading into Montreal. And nowhere, with the only thing between us and the thing between us and the house, besides being in the middle of the river, was a cornfield that they had. They call it kind of scalping, which means they were all about this high. If you ever walked on corn stalks that are this high and with snow this high, you know that it's going to hurt. It's like walking on, you know, coals, fire coals.
Oh my God.
And long story short, we both lost our shoes. Imagine that. So we had to walk across the field in the snow after we were unconscious after we came back. And was our experience. So free will, once again, that's my illustration for you. Yes, we have free will. Our guides are with us. They're going to tell us, don't do stupid things. Why are you doing stupid things? I just made you, come on, the battery doesn't work. What's wrong with you? But free will put you over the bridge,
Well,
which is
and
what it
this
did
is a
with us.
curious thing because so a lot of people where their contract was not to die there, they'll mention that they saw something, they call it an angel.
Yes.
Some angel came and they ask me, some people get questions, do you want to go? Do you want to stay? And
Yes.
some people say that they're told it's not their time to go. I'm going to, we'll get into angels, I'm sure at some point, but like, would believe that would be their guide, most likely. Correct?
Well,
Or is it angelic?
I'm going to suggest something different, which is
Oh,
interesting. Okay.
ooh, I'm so excited.
Ooh, because I do have, again, I know my guides. I've known them for a long time, and I've kind of seen what they've looked like for a long time. When you grow up with trauma, you kind of want to know who's on your
Mhm.
side. So you spend a lot of time wondering what that would be like. So we did go off into a bridge unconscious in the water. And so I had a wonderful experience with a beautiful feminine energy that kept saying, it's time to go. It's time to wake up, time to go. And that was my first near-death experience. I've had two now. It was my first near-death experience. I know. And so as I was in this car, and it's going to be in Contemptus, my book, I'm beginning to write again, folks.
I literally was going to ask you about that.
Yes, it's going to be in the book. But
Oh, that's
I
amazing.
was still in an unconscious state. But this beautiful voice, this woman was like, no, dear, you've got to wake up. You can't go back. I mean, you can't go there. You've got to go back. And I kept saying, I knew it. I heard it. I heard my voice go, no, I'm staying with you. This is where I want to be. It felt like I was in embryonic fluid in someone's womb. Okay. And this woman that was just right in front of me, and she was just beautiful. She was very kind of outlined in a silhouette, and she was going, no, dear, you're not supposed to be here yet. And so I was upset with that. So she said, no, it's time to go back. And I mean it. You have to. You're not supposed to be here. And I woke up. I'll tell you, it was a lot different then.
Oh my
I had
God.
water up to my neck, and then
I don't think you've ever told me about that part of it.
yeah, that was my first near-death experience. So was that an angel? I can tell you, I don't believe it was my guide. I've never seen this energy
Wow.
again. And even in my
Wow.
second one, I did not see the same one. I heard a male voice, and it did
What
not.
was it? May I ask? When and what was?
It was right after holiday. It was probably, I want to say, it's been a long time. That one was about 25 years ago. And I was on one of our streets called Greenville Avenue in Dallas. And, I was just going, I had a yellow, I mean, not a yellow light, a green light. I was doing fine. I was preoccupied because I was moving Christmas decorations to a storage unit because I didn't have room in my place. And so I was going through the green light, and someone was running the light, and they were running it with a very old-fashioned Cadillac, not old-fashioned, but old Cadillac, very, very built, sturdy and strong. And literally I hit them broadside. And so it took out the whole front of my car, and the battery flew out and everything. And so I was unconscious then. And when I was coming back, I didn't want to come back from that. And I was heard, no, it's time, let's go. You can't stay. You can't be here. You've got to get out of the road. Let's go. And this time it was a male voice. And I was like, no, I think I'm fine. Take me if you need me. And they said, no, you can't. You're not ready for this. You're not ready yet. So I thought, okay, gosh. And I did. I literally remember waking up, and I was still alone. So it wasn't like anyone was talking to me. And then everyone came running, and I was like, gosh, this isn't what I wanted to see.
Well, that's crazy because there was a case that I remember hearing about where someone had bruising as though somebody had wrapped arms around them, and there was, like, I can't remember, there was that, and then the paramedics had asked who is missing from the vehicle because I guess she had been vocalizing her brother's name.
Ah,
So is there a component where it's like, okay, obviously she wasn't meant to die in that moment, so we understand that death is contracted.
yes.
But how could somebody have, we understand we can be like, I get all that, but why would a past sibling who's already be allowed to help intercede in this way? Just because anyone needs to help to make sure it doesn't happen?
Well, and again, that information I can only surmise. I don't have I don't have a firsthand experience that I can bring back to you right
Mhm.
now. But I do feel that the siblings would be just as much welcomed as anyone else. I don't
Right.
necessarily feel it has to be an angel presence, but I feel in some instances I felt that the woman was, because it was very different. It was I saw the
Mm.
light and I saw this bright energy around her, and I thought, that's for me, I'm going. And it was more of talking me
You
out of
said
crossing.
yes to that.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it was like, yep, I
Wow.
want that. Give me a piece of that pie, because that one is what I'm looking for. But the second one was more, it was still in the darkness. It was very matter of fact. It was like, no, you can't be here. You need to get out of the road. You need to come with me now. You need to get out of this car.
And you saw him or you just heard him?
No, I heard him. The
Okay.
first one I saw. This one I
Wow.
heard. Just heard. And that was different.
So in that scenario then with like, so some people have said, I don't know how I feel about this. I'm very curious for you. With especially with the NDE stuff, the near death experience,
Mhm.
because I recognize I almost died in China, and then further on the timeline, I like continually almost drowned for a while. I'm like, where were my parents? First of all, but and then never since, knock on wood. But some people say that those that are intended to do a lot of work in the light, they have a tendency to have more near death experiences. And obviously you could take that from two different angles. Either you are so in connection with spirit that you're automatically drawn to circumstances that will take you to it, or that you are sort of targeted as a way to knock out the good and the work and good spirit that you're doing. What are your thoughts on that?
That is an excellent, excellent question, because that I have pondered for nearly all of my life. Because again, think about it. If there is a balance, and if we see that the balance on each side of the scales is good versus evil, right? Good and bad, if those are the balancing items, that the feelings, the emotions, actions, whatever you want to call them, then knowing that we are of the light, knowing that our intentions are to help and to bring up the masses, bring up the individuals, bring up those that want, to be a little bit closer and understand more of the spiritual world. We
Tip the
would,
scale on the light side is what we
yes,
try to do essentially.
that's what we do, is we try to tip that scale on the right, I call it the right side. Yes, the light side, the right is the light is the right. And so, yes, I do feel that sometimes we are targeted. Now, is that, I know there's going to be someone that's going to go, oh, well, that's ridiculous. Why would you feel targeted? Well, it is something, that I can feel skeptical about, but I also feel that there's a potential for that to happen. If we do and believe the things that we, are taught to do, or we are kind of guided to do, then certainly there must be something on the other side of that scales that would want us to not do so, that would not want us to succeed. They would not want us to basically to live, or whatever that would be in their terminology. So yes, are we targeted? I do feel that. And it goes back to what we've heard, only the good die young. Now, I'm not saying,
Interesting.
yeah, I'm not saying I'm all good, folks. I'm not.
No, but I mean that's a funny phrase to bring out right now, because that is something people say, and that I've never really thought why.
Well, and again, it is a phrase, and we often say when we are in a deep state of trauma. But realistically, is it the truth? I don't know. But I understand, if you take that and you take that belief system that some people have. Obviously, that's how we heard it. Then it makes you wonder. Well, are the good being taken out because they're on that side of the energy?
And I do think that it's important to say as well, because I know, like you just said, there's going to be people who are skeptical, but there's also going to be people who are going to take that and that will fit a narrative for them, where,
Yes.
oh, I'm a good person, that must mean then that'll be targeted forever. And it's not really like that.
It's
And
not
if you
like that,
perceive it
folks.
that way, you're going to find it because where attention goes, energy flows, right? So
Right.
you start thinking,
Precisely.
oh, I'm trying to
Exactly.
do good stuff. And then
That's
suddenly
right.
you're walking into, you're expecting, so then they come,
Right.
you
You're
know.
walking. Yes, that's
And
exactly it.
we're here to do, like, I think it's both the most comforting thing and the most, like, bland. It's not an exciting thought, really, but there is a component where the birth and death are contracted.
I agree with that completely.
And so, what are they really going to be able to do to you?
Exactly. I agree with that. Other than just give us a hard time.
Exactly.
And
And that
that
just
they
means you're doing
do.
the right thing. And, like, if you feel that they're, and it's so funny because I don't know that I've felt that since we started training and all that. Like, I've never felt, oh, I'm in duress.
Good.
I do think there's more activity in my place, but there was activity in my place. That's why I came to you in the first place.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
right.
so it's weird to me in that way. And do you think that that is a perspective thing, or how does? I just don't know. I don't know how to feel. You know what I mean? I agree, but
It, the bottom line is you're right. What you draw attention to, or what you bring it nearer to you. That is your way. I don't know how to put it in
mm,
another term. But if you bring this to you and you learn about all the wonderful things that are about the spiritual world and all the different components about spirituality and all the potentiality to, meet guides, to be on the other side, to have near-death experiences, when you see all that, I don't want anyone to feel that you are a target. There's no target on your
mm,
back. It's
mm-mm,
just that you're going to be in more places, whether they are all within your energy or physically. You're going to be in more places. So you're
mhm.
more apt to get experiences that you might
Mm.
otherwise never have noticed.
Well, I just got a message too that I think is important because I didn't think about this originally from me, but they were saying that they're going to always be more interested in coveting and converting you than actually taking you off the board.
Yes.
So, and they brought up this person who's actually on the conscious level, a decent, very nice guy, I think. But I've talked to you about him because I was on a date with him, and like I'd already said, I was a baby, like all these things, and we wound up watching the most traumatizing movie maybe I've ever seen in my whole life. Like, it's just the topics are traumatizing, the
Listen,
graphics were traumatizing, and
one hell of a date, huh?
it was horrible. I mean, and I was so submissive at the time. I just was like, I wouldn't stand up for myself. And I think that that was something of that nature where it was like, well, either, yeah, it was weird. And I don't think he's a bad person, but I do think there's a darkness in the bloodline. I
Right.
think it came out that night. Like, it was
Yes.
so weird.
Right.
So
Well,
that I could see more. And weirdly, I had a lunch date a long time ago with somebody that I started to get a very weird, sinister feeling. Then he disclosed he was a Mason and a high level and all this. And I have personal feelings about that organization. And I was like, that is weird because I think I've seen it in the dating field, but never like you have things with cars apparently. No,
yes.
but you know what I mean? Like, if
I
they're
know. I
trying to
do
get at
know.
you with your vehicle, there's been approaches in a more like in people, which is interesting.
Well, and that's exactly
And
right.
you
No,
have too.
hmm.
I won't talk. Yeah,
Well,
people that
and
really want to be near you.
well, I'll tell you, and you do have to be mindful of this too, and you can't take on an arrogant attitude about it, because I'm going to tell you, twice thereafter, I got myself in trouble with arrogance. Now I was younger,
Mm.
so I'm gonna say that as my reason. We'll use
We're
that.
allowed our youth and our mistakes, and our
Well,
old age and our mistakes.
well, exactly. I became cocky. I thought, well, gosh, I missed death through my childhood. I still, kind of like last man
Good
standing felt,
point.
you know,
Yeah.
I did that. And, I've got all this wonderful experience, in the past of, near death experiences. And here, last man standing, we're good. Well, two times after in dating,
Mm.
I put
Mm.
myself in a position where one time I was almost raped, and the other time I was
Mm.
nearly choked to death. So
Mm.
we recognize that no, we're not all. I mean, I could have maybe not died, but I could have been gasping for my for breath, and then being brain dead. So please, people, don't get arrogant with your skill sets. Still use
Mm.
good common judgment and
Yeah.
sense. You know, I mean, if it looks like it might hurt you, it might. It probably will. Use your intuition to know better. Don't use your intuition to run into a burning house because you're not contracted to die by fire. Okay.
That's funny that you just said that. But you know, also the funny thing, I don't know why, but when you were talking about being arrogant, they said that it was like you're a thrice baked potato, like you've been through the fire so many times now. I don't know, that was so weird.
That's
But
funny.
but yeah, man, I think that is I've read a ton about NDEs. I've
Mhm.
never had that experience where anything came to me or spoke to me that I recall. But it is people say that they come back different. And so there's a component where sometimes it feels like we do leave either that experience of getting that close when you shouldn't, or that you go and spend time over there and you shouldn't have, and then you come back. Do you think that that has a tendency to make people more sensitive?
Yes, I do. I certainly do.
Why?
And again, now some people, again, everyone is different, right? But some people will be more defiant of it. Like, oh my gosh, it almost killed me. Look what, if I start thinking about all this stuff, it almost killed me. You know, actually it probably revived you and brought you back. But some people will become overly sensitive in a negative way. But I do feel, and I have talked to those that have had near-death experiences, and I do feel that they really they get more relaxed. It's a calmness that you can't really explain. It's a tranquility that's there. It's not always prevalent. You know, they're still living a human life, but you can see there's something a little bit different about them. And those are the
Wow.
ones that I usually say, hey, have you had a near-death experience?
Wow.
And they usually are the ones that say they have. It's just it's hard to explain, but it's something. It's as if it's the equivalent of someone who has gained a deeper point of wisdom, and even though they're not engaged in that every day of their life, it's kind of taken and rooted in their energy, and I feel that they carry it with them.
That's so fascinating because I used to read a lot about the hypnotic regressions, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there was basically the allegation goes that you could get somebody into such a state that their soul becomes able to be conscious and speak.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of record where the person will just start sobbing, saying, I miss this. I miss being here. I miss being in connection. I'm so separate down there. I'm so scared down there. It's so hard down there.
Yes.
There's a lot of crying. And then I wonder if I feel like if that is how we are in this, like where we miss it so much, but we don't know we miss it, there's got to be comfort that you do have that little, you're like, it must be like a stayover. Like, yes, I'll finish my life out because I'll be here and I'll do that. But maybe there's like that remembrance. It's almost like that illegal remembrance that you're not alone, that there is a place you're going to go back to.
Yes.
Maybe that's part of it too, is you're just a little bit less edgy.
Well,
it is hard down here.
And that makes sense. You know, again, and I'm giving you personal experiences. And for those of you, you can choose to either believe them, disbelieve them, write them off. It's perfectly fine.
Or tell us about your NDE in the comments.
Well,
I would so love to hear.
Well, one thing that happened shortly thereafter, let me put shortly thereafter into a better perspective. Probably about 10 years later, so that's not shortly after.
Oh, wow.
But what happened was I was literally coming back from work. It was nothing, trust me, there was nothing much going on. I was not looking or intending to have an out-of-body experience. I wasn't intending to have any remembrance. I wasn't intending to talk to angels. I wasn't intending to do anything other than to go get something to eat. I was starving, so I walked into my kitchen and I started. Now, this is going to get weird. I started singing. Here for it. I started singing. But when I started singing, I literally started singing very high-pitched. Now, I don't have a high voice, okay? And so I was like, whoa. Even then, I was like, whoa. Because, I hadn't really been doing a lot of the work that I do now. And I was just singing. And I started listening to the singing. And I was basically asking to go home. And it was very high-pitched. And I was saying,
I just heard
let me go home. And I
Oh my
sat
gosh.
down. I'll never forget it. It was the most beautiful thing. And even it was one of those experiences that just kind of played out. Now this could be what your friend is also saying about daydreaming. This may have been some of that.
Mhm.
But literally I sat down, I closed my eyes for a moment, and I saw a ring of 12 angels. And I had a vision that I was in the center of it, and I was singing, "Please let me come home."
You're like petitioning them.
And they would not, they said it's not time.
Oh my
And then they
God.
just all kind of drifted up, like I was watching them all leave.
They're like, peace.
And I'm
No,
like,
come
I
back.
just wanted a sandwich. And now I'm singing, "Get me home. I'm home. I'm in my kitchen."
Wow. And you
But
weren't even in an emotional state.
not at all. Not at all. I had
Wow.
no intentions of that. And literally, I remember it started singing. I'm like, what am I singing? What am I doing? What is this? What's going on? What's going on with the energy? And I started singing in very high pitch. It was actually, I wish I would have recorded it because it was not anything I would have done. And it was
Mm.
very high pitched, but was, basically, take me home. It's time to leave. I want to be there. Bring me back. And it wasn't
Mm.
any emotion that I was feeling consciously in the human vessel. And
Yeah.
so, when we talk about near-death experiences and how they may or may not affect other people, that is, for me, that was an example of something stuck. Something
Mm.
was still there. Now, there's going to be plenty of, as we
A
continue to
memory of
grow.
the path back.
Pardon me? What?
Do you think there's a chance that it's like you it's like going down a slope with fresh snow? It's like you had to go that path twice.
Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
your energy just knows how to go and it shouldn't know, but it does. So
And
it
it
does
may
it.
be. And it may be
Wow.
that. And I'm grateful for that. Trust me, this isn't
That's
about
crazy.
ego.
Mm-mm,
I'm not
no.
saying I did this, you can't do that. I'm simply saying this
No.
was an experience that I have had a couple of times. And then the connection further into that realm, the angelic realm, which again, that we know that we've got a lot of subject time to spend with angels to talk more in depth.
Yes.
But recognizing that here I am in human form. I just wanted a sandwich. I'm in the kitchen.
Right.
I probably hadn't pulled the bread out by then. I'm hungry. For me to go from 0 to 100 into a completely different connection, was interesting, even for me. Because
Mm.
now I do it all the time. So when people look and they go, "I don't believe
Right.
in this stuff," I actually don't even have an impression or an opinion anymore. I just laugh. I'm like, okay,
And that
yeah,
was so healing for me when we started doing this podcast again, because I'd been in the discords where everyone's asking me, am I crazy, all these things.
yep.
And you were just so you were like, I don't have the time to figure out if you believe or not. And I loved that. It helped me kind of get back into alignment with what I believe. Because you do, for me, it's like, no,
Right.
you're so right. It's like,
It's
it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. I did something I never do. I was looking at I went online and Googled my book. I never do that because, I don't really care what people review it as. It is what it is. It's my life. You can like it or not. It's up to you. I didn't like it personally. But I went in there and I saw on Google, there was a little caption that said that the storyline was deemed to be basically almost like not mystical, but magical. It was magical thinking and it didn't happen. And I at first I was a little taken back by that, and I thought that's okay, for all those Reddit people that not on my nerves. I'm good. But I saw that and I thought, isn't it funny that I have that response to my upbringing, and then I'm an intuitive, an animal communicator. I'm medical empath. I'm a channeler, and no, there's a large segment of our population that doesn't believe in any of that either. And I thought, thank you for making me a little off the beaten trail.
Oh,
And, and so for me, that was a different take too, because at first I was like, oh, well, who wrote that? You know what? I don't care who wrote that. What matters is we all have our own path, and it's not going to agree with every single person out there that hears us or works with us or sees us. Not everyone's going to be on the same page. But you know what? That's why there's so many wonderful pages to each of our chapters. We don't have to
that's
be
so
alike.
beautiful. No, I agree entirely. Just be nice. My goodness.
Be
Just be
nice.
nice.
Be kind. Yes.
Golden rule.
Yes. Be
Well,
kind.
Miss Terry, we have done it. Next week, we're probably going to cover some
Gosh.
angels, and I'm very excited. But today, I
Oh,
feel like we just had the most amazing topics, and
angels.
it'll be very. I'm so curious, but I am going to link your book, of course, your
Thank you.
Netflix and your website always. So please do, if you would like a reading with her, reach out. I'll leave my contact information below as well. And then also do share. Have you had NDEs? What do you think about them? Do you
Yes.
believe they're real or not? You know, we'd love to know kind of what you feel about some of these topics, because it'll definitely be something we shout out at some point as well.
Yes, please. You know, I don't read them, but Sterling will. She will read all the reviews, all the questions. Please, you know, come interact with us. Come play with us. We
got our first comment last week, and it
Ooh.
was like so nice. She was like, I've
Ooh.
been looking for this. This is exactly the information I've been looking for, which I was hoping that's what we were going to be able to
That is
accomplish.
so cool. And we only had to pay $20 to get that. I'm so excited.
No.
Just kidding. We didn't do that.
And I missed it too. It was like 7 days ago. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I'm so happy.
Wow.
But we
That's
don't
really
do
cool.
it for that. We do it because we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to tip that scale, baby.
Yeah, let's tip that scale. Let's elevate energy, right?
Yes.
Let's upgrade.
Yes. That's right, from last week.
I'm working on that book, by the way.
I'm so excited. It's
about upgrade. That's the name of it. So don't you, listeners, don't you dare steal my book title. I give you all so many book titles. This one's mine.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I will see you next week. We're going to have an amazing conversation, and join us there next week.
Absolutely. You all take care. Enjoy your life.
Terri, I love you so much.
Love you too.
All right. See you next week. Bye.
See you next week.